Hello kids. So in this chapter we will be looking into bones and muscle. We'll be meeting Mr. Bones, who's right here, and Muscle Man. So without further delay, let's jump right into the chapter. Now when you look at our body consists of several organs. For example, we have the lungs, which is right here. The lungs help in absorbing oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Then we have the heart, which is right here. And the heart helps in pumping blood and food to the rest of the body. Then we have our stomach, which is helping in digesting food. And we have the eyes, which helps us to see. So these are a few examples of the organs that we have in our body. And these organs of our body cannot work alone. They usually work with other organs. And when several organs work together, they perform major functions of the body. For example, the organs like our teeth, the salivary gland, the stomach, the intestines, all of them work together to digest our food. So this organ called as the digestive system. The organs that work together generally are called an organ system. So you can see here it starts with the mouth. We have the esophagus, we have the stomach, and various other organs like the intestine, which all work together to perform one function, which is digestion. Now let us talk about a few organ systems in our body. For example, let's see the first one, which is the nervous system. If we see the nervous system, it comprises of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. So you can see in this image right here, this is the nervous system, and it controls all the functions of our body. Then we have the skeletal system. The skeletal system already is made up of bones. So you can see here, this is the skeletal system, and it gives shape to the body and it protects the internal organs of our body. Then we have the muscular system, which is made up of muscles. So this is the muscular system here, and it helps in the movement of the different body parts. Next, we have the circulatory system. What is the circulatory system comprised of? It is made up of the heart, it's made up of blood and blood vessels. So what is the function of the circulatory system? The circulatory system helps in carrying food and oxygen to the various parts of the body, and also helps in collecting waste materials from the rest of the body. So this here is our circulatory system. Then we have the digestive system. Now when you look at the digestive system, it consists of teeth, stomach, small and large intestines, and this helps in digesting the food that we eat, and it provides energy by digesting the food. Then we have the breathing system, which is made up of nose as well as lungs. Now this helps in absorbing oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. So this is our breathing system or the respiratory system. Then we have the excretory system. The excretory system is made up of kidney as well as the skin, which is covering the rest of our body. This removes waste from our body. So this is the excretory system. And finally, we have the reproductive system. Now, reproductive system is different in men and women, and they help for the production of children. So you can see here the male reproductive organ is different from the female reproductive organ. Now, in this chapter, we will be focusing on skeletal system as well as muscles. So let's look at Mr. Bones. So say hi to Mr. Bones, kids. Now when you see the bones of the body, they form a framework which is called as the skeletal system. And this skeletal system gives shape as well as strength to the body. And not just that, it protects the vital organs in our body like the brain, the heart, lungs, as well as other soft organs which are there. So this Mr. Bones is helping in protecting all the soft organs which are present inside our body. Now when you see the bones, bones are really hard and they are of different shapes and sizes. For example, if you see the bones in the legs and the hands, they are long. You can see, right? These bones are very long. And if you see the chest bones, that is the ribs, they are thin and rounded. And if you see the head bone, it is flat and rounded. Whereas if you focus on the fingers, these bones are all very short. And another very interesting thing is the adult skeletal system has 206 bones. When you're born, you have many more bones than this, but as you grow up, all these bones fuse, and when you're an adult, you have just 206 bones. And as in when you grow, even your bones are growing longer and stronger. Now another very interesting fact is, if you see the outside of the bone, it is hard and tough, whereas the inside of the bone is soft and spongy. And the inside of the bone consists of a jelly-like substance which is called as the bone marrow. So if you see this image here, the inside has the bone marrow. So this is the bone marrow, and this helps in the production of blood cells. So this bone marrow is helping your body to produce blood cells. And bones are a living tissue in our body and they can mend themselves. That's why when you fall down and have a fracture, after a few weeks it heals on its own, because the bone is mending itself and correcting itself. Now we will talk about the different parts of our skeletal system. We have the skull, then we have the backbone, we have the ribs, we have limbs, which is nothing but our hands and legs, and we have the joints. So when we talk about parts of the skeletal system, we will be talking about all of these 5 things. Now let's talk about each of these in detail. First we'll be talking about is the skull. So we will be looking at the head of Mr. Bones here. Now when we see a skull, the bones of the head is called the skull. And it protects the brain. It also contains holes for our eyes, nose, ears, as well as mouth. When you see the skull, it has holes for your eyes, for nose, for mouth, as well as for your ears. And the skull bone is made up of 22 different bones that are joined together. So you can see here, this is nothing but the joining of the bones. So what all bones are there? When you see the upper part of the skull, which is your head, it has 7 bones which are fused together, and your face alone has 14 bones which are fused together. So it's very interesting, right, to think that your skull has 22 different bones which are actually joined together. And the interesting thing is, only the lower jaw is movable in the entire bone of the skull. So only this part, that is the lower jaw of your skull, is movable. The rest of it is not movable. Next, we will talk about the backbone. So this is your backbone. When you see the backbone is made up of 33 small bones which are called as the vertebrae. So each of these bones are called as a vertebrae, and they are joined together to form the backbone. The backbone is also called a spine or the vertebral column. So anywhere you come across the term spine or vertebral column, you should understand that it is nothing but the backbone. And these joints allow for slight movement of the vertebrae. That's the reason why you're able to bend and twist your back. It is because these vertebrae can move slightly. And each vertebrae has a hole in the center, and through this hole you can see that the spinal cord is passing through it. So this is the hole, and through that the spinal cord can pass through. Therefore, you can also say that the vertebral column is what protects the spinal cord, because the spinal cord is very, very delicate. It needs to be protected, and it is this backbone that is protecting the spinal cord. Now let's move on and look at the rib of our Mr. Bones. When you see a rib, ribs are thin, They are flat and they are curved. So they are thin, flat and curved, and they form a cage around your heart, your lungs, to protect them. So you can see here, your heart and your lungs are generally in this region of your body, and it forms a cage around it to protect it. You have 12 pairs of ribs. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. I hope you counted with me. So you have 12 pairs of ribs, and these ribs join at the backbone at the back. So if you see the back side of this, they are joining the backbone. So this is the backbone, and all of the ribs are joining the backbone at the back side of your body. Whereas if you see the front side, these ribs are joining the breastbone. So this is the breastbone that you have here, and you can see that the ribs are joining the breastbone in the front. If you touch your chest region, right in the center, you can feel a hard substance, right? That is nothing but your breastbone. It's called as the sternum. But an interesting part is that there are just 2 pairs of lower ribs, that is rib 11 and rib 12, that is right here. So this rib 11 and rib 12 do not join the breastbone. Okay, they do not join the breastbone, and that is why these 2 ribs are called as the floating ribs. So the last 2 pairs of ribs are called as the floating ribs. Now we'll move on to the hands and legs of Mr. Bones. When you see the hands and legs of Mr. Bones, the hip bone is made up of 3 different bones that are joined together. And the lower limb is actually attaching itself to the hip bone. Upper half of the leg has a long bone. So this is a long bone, and it is called as the femur bone, or it's called the thigh bone. So it is in the thigh region of your body. It's called the thigh bone or the femur bone. And the lower half of your leg has shin bone and calf bone. So you have the shin bone and you have the calf bone right here. And at the end of your leg, you have your foot, which is the part which you use for walking. And this has a number of small bones that make up the foot. Now, when you see your hands, the upper limbs are attached to your shoulder blades. So these are called your shoulder blades, and your upper arms are attached to the shoulder blades. And even the upper part of the hands have a long bone, which is called as the humerus. And again, the lower part is made up of 2 different bones. Same like your foot, your wrist as well as your hands are made up of a number of small bones. So more or less, the hands and legs are quite similar in anatomy, with a long bone, 2 smaller bones, and several tiny bones which make up the hand and the foot. So with this, we've learnt all about Mr. Bones. Let's do a quick recap of how much we know Mr. Bones. We first spoke about organs and organ systems. Then we saw the skeletal system. We said hi to Mr. Bones. And we spoke about the different parts of the skeletal system. Like we spoke about the skull. We said the skull is made up of 22 different bones. That is 8 bones in your head and 14 bones in your face. And only the lower jaw is the movable part of your skull. Then we spoke about your backbone, which we said is made up of 33 small bones called as vertebrae. And we saw that these vertebrae have a hole in the center so that the spinal cord can pass through it. Then we went on to talk about the ribs, and we saw we have 12 pairs of ribs which attach to the backbone at the back side of your body and to the breastbone in the front. And we saw the last 2 pairs are actually called as floating ribs because they don't attach to the breastbone. And lastly, we spoke about the limbs, which are nothing but your hands and legs. So we spoke about the bones of the lower limbs, which are your legs. And we saw that it attaches to the hip bone. And the longest bone is called as the femur bone, which is nothing but your thigh bone. And we saw the lower part of your leg is made up of 2 bones, which are called as the shin bone and the calf bone. And we saw that the foot region is made up of several small bones. Then we went on to talk about the four limbs, which are nothing but your hands, and we saw this also has a long bone which is called as the humerus, and the lower part of your hands have two other bones, and your hands and wrist have several small bones. So with this we complete part 1 of this chapter. We spoke about Mr. Bones. In the next class, let's go and meet Mr. Muscle. Thank you.